My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Lost Season 1. And this will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch my review because I will be going in depth. Now, Lost is such an iconic series. Lots of people love it, and I've heard lots of great things about it. Minus the ending, I've heard mixed things on that. But it's a show I've always been meaning to watch, and I'm finally starting it, and I have to say, it's a letdown so far. But let's begin with the cast of characters we've got. The main character is Jack, played by Matthew Fox, who does a fine enough job. I do wish he had more charisma, but he is a nice guy, and I like how he's the leader of the group because people count on him. And with him being the doctor, that makes perfect sense. He's a decent enough main character. I don't really care for his flashback stories for the most part, minus one with him and his dad, and they do a surgery together and his dad was drinking, and I thought that was his best flashback. That really did add something to the character. But yeah, I don't love this character, but he's good enough for the main character. And then we've got Kate, played by Evangeline Lilly, who I think does a really good job. And this is one of my favorite characters. She's just so unpredictable. You can never be fully sure if you can trust her or not. And it just keeps things interesting throughout. I think she's well written for the most part. She does have a criminal past, and I wish they touched on that a bit more, because there's one episode where they create some tension from it, but then it just feels like it gets thrown away, and they use that again in future episodes, but just on the basis of can we trust her or not. And I don't know, I wish they kind of touched on her maybe being a bad person more. But I do like this character. I don't really care for the flashbacks involving her, but yeah, this is one of the better characters. But she's not my favorite character. No, that title goes to Sawyer, played very well by Josh Holloway. This is my favorite character. He's just the most entertaining one of the bunch. Like, he's a complete dick, but because of that, he just adds this nice dynamic to the group where he kind of keeps everyone on edge, and I just like seeing that on display. Like, there's one episode where everyone thinks he's got some medicine that he doesn't have, and they beat him and they torture him for it, and he just never had it. So he just likes to mess around with them. And in a show like this, where there's not a lot of great characters, someone who has this much personality is such a welcome presence. But there is one moment in one of the last episodes where he tells Jack about an encounter he had with his dad. And it was actually a really sweet moment, and yeah, this character's just really entertaining. I don't really care for his flashbacks, but you'll see that's a recurring theme with all these characters. In between Jack, Kate, and Sawyer, there is a love triangle between the three of them, which I did really like. Like, you've got the nice guy, you've got the bad boy, and then you've got the girl. You know, it's just something to keep the show entertaining, a bit of personal drama, keeps the show grounded. And there's one scene between Kate and Sawyer where they have to tell each other a lie, and if they've done it, then they take a drink. And it starts off as lighthearted fun, but it gets really dark and really real fast, and I like that moment, and it just highlights that these people aren't perfect people. They're heavily flawed, but I do like the fact that they included a love triangle. Then we got Zahid, played by Naveen Andrews, and I really like this character. He just seems like a genuine good guy, always trying to do the right thing, but conflicted in moments. He's one of the better written characters. Then we've got John Locke, played by Terry O'Quinn, and I don't know if people love this character or not, but this might be a hot take, but I don't like this guy at all. I just don't think he's interesting. He's supposed to be like the definitive survivor guy, you know, the guy who knows what to do, how to do it, and all that stuff, but he just comes across as an arrogant ass. He just thinks that he's always better than everyone else, and he mostly avoids other people, so we don't even get much of his dynamic with the rest of the group. His friendship with Dunes did nothing for me. I didn't really care for the two of them, and the reveal in his one episode where it turns out he was in a wheelchair, like, I just didn't feel any emotional weight behind that. And then we've got Holly, who's played by George Garcia, and as soon as I saw him, I'm just like, that's the Blitz from How I Met Your Mother. This is a character that at first I'm just like, okay, I like this character. He's there to lighten the mood. But I got sick of him really fast, and he started to get on my nerves. Like, he's meant to be the comedic relief character, but he never really made me laugh, and he just... Like, there's one scene where he's trying to get the baby to stop crying, and he sings a song, I Feel Good, and it's meant to be this really funny scene, but I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, this guy's just so annoying. And then anytime he's trying to hunt or fish, it just kind of plays off like it's a joke, and I just wish they took it a bit more seriously. And his flashback story, yeah, I know this is an unpopular opinion, I hate. Like, I think it's one of the worst flashback story in this entire season. Like, everything involving those numbers, I just think is very poorly written. And yeah, I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff. So yeah, not a big fan of that character. Then we've got Sun, who's played by Eugene Kim, and I think she does a fine enough job. She doesn't have a huge personality. As soon as I saw her, and everyone's talking to her like she can't speak English, I'm just like, oh, it's going to be a funny joke that she can speak English. And they don't play it off like a joke, but they play it off more like a character reveal moment later on. And yeah, I like the friendship she forms with Kate. There's not a lot that this character does. And then we've got her husband, Jin-soo, played by Daniel Dae Kim. And I get what they're going for with him, but I just think the character falls flat. I think he's a very boring character, one of my least favorites in the show. Then we've got Charlie, played by Dominic Monaghan. And I don't care for him, Eizo. I know he's kind of like the underdog character in some way, where lots of people don't have much expectations for him, but he's supposed to surprise them. And yeah, usually I root for that kind of character, but I just found this guy to be annoying, uninteresting. And that one episode where he dies, and then he doesn't die, I thought that was a really dumb moment. And then it's a big part of his flashbacks that he was at once a druggie, but now he's getting over his addiction. And they just kind of seem to forget that. Like, he's on an island with no drugs. Like, shouldn't he be going through bigger withdrawal? But they never really focus on that until the very end, where we see him find the plane filled with drugs and he takes some. And I'm just like, well, why did he take some? Like, we haven't really seen him struggle. So I didn't really buy that character beat in the end. Then we've got Claire, played by Emily D. Raven, and I just thought this character was incredibly boring. Her disappearing and coming back, I didn't care for that plot at all, and I didn't really care for the plot involving her pregnancy either. This is a character that just added nothing to the show to me. And then we've got Shannon, played by Maggie Grace, who I thought was a really boring character that added nothing to the show. She does develop a relationship with Sahid, but once again, doesn't really add anything. Then her brother's played by Ian Somerhalder, his name is Boone, and I thought this was another boring character that added nothing. His only personality trait was that he was insecure, and I didn't like their backstory, and I was surprised they killed him off, honestly. Like, I'm just like, wait, they actually killed off a main character? But I lacked any emotional weight, just the way it happens, it didn't work for me. The relationship between the two of them, as soon as I saw them in the first episode, I was watching with my parents who have seen the show, and I'm just like, I get the sense that he likes her, and my mom's just like, the brother and sister. I'm just like, hey, I'm just getting those vibes. I see some Game of Thrones shit here, and it turns out I was correct, so I guess I'm just a master predictor. And then we've got Michael, played by Harold Perrineau, and this is going to be an inverse of everyone else up until this point, but I like his flashbacks. I don't like him on the island. I do think this character is well developed. His backstory with his son about how he wanted a relationship with him, but the mom said no, and she kept him away. And then after she dies, he's trying to make his way into his son's life and how he's struggling with that. I think that's actually some very good writing. But he's given like nothing to do on the island, and he doesn't really add much to that dynamic on the island. Then his son, Watt, played by Malcolm David Kelly, he's fine enough for what he has to do. Yeah, he's fine. There's one scene where he burns the raft, and I thought, oh, this kid's just a brat, but yeah. Then we've also got this Marshall character, and I do wish he stayed alive, because it kind of highlight the fact that he's after Kate, about how he was the one that arrested Kate, and I'm just like, okay, I like to see how this dynamic evolves on this island, but then he gets killed off, and I'm just like, oh, that feels like wasted potential. I would have liked to seen that. The scene where he dies, where Sawyer shoots him, but he doesn't die, I didn't like that. It felt like it was trying to be funny or something, and it just didn't work for me. Then every now and again, we've got a random character that just shows up, and they act like he's been on the island the entire time. Like, there's one episode where they play golf, and there's one character in that episode, I'm just like, I haven't seen him once. And then I looked it up, and yeah, this is the only episode he's in. And that kind of stuff does take me out of it. There's another character in one of the last episodes where he shows up, and he's just like, wow, you guys never talk to me. You do know there's other people on the island, right? Like, that's an obvious hint at the audience who's thinking we haven't seen him yet. But then they just use him, and he dies. And I just couldn't have killed less because the character only existed in this one episode to die. So, yeah, I didn't care. Like, are they just going to keep adding characters into this show just for them to die? So we can be like, oh, someone died. Oh, but it's not anyone we care about. Woof, that was a close one. So this show has two main storylines. We've got the main stuck on the island storyline. And then each episode focuses on a different character's flashbacks. And as I've made clear, those flashbacks did nothing for me for the most part. There's a few that stand out, but more often than not, I just think they're a lazy way to reveal character. Like, this show relies on those flashbacks so we can have a sense of who each person is. But it's better writing when you include that in the main storyline. And yes, this show would be shorter, but that's not always a bad thing. In fact, I think it would make it a tighter, better written show. The fact that they depend on flashbacks as often as they do just makes it feel like it's a crutch for them to depend on. And it's not just this show. For the most part, I'm not a fan of flashbacks. But yeah, it does take up a lot of time on this show, and it's usually poorly written stuff. The main storyline on the island, there's not really one main storyline. It just focuses on all these different characters. There's one storyline involving Locke and Boone finding this hatch in the middle of the jungle. And I just thought this was the dumbest storyline ever. Like, Locke's just like, we can't tell anyone about this. They're not ready for it. It's just like, why the hell not? It's a freaking hatch. Like, what's the big deal? But he talks about it like it's so serious, like it's life or death. It's just like, dude, it's a hatch. Just tell them. Like, just tell people about the hatch. Why all this secrecy? It's just, that storyline didn't work for me at all. And then we've got the storyline where they're building this raft, which, fine, it makes perfect sense. If you're on an island, you're going to try to build a raft or something like that. I get it. But at the same time, I know this show is 6 seasons long, so I know it's not going to work. So it just feels like they're dragging out the inevitable. It's not going to work, or something's gone wrong. And in the last episode, where they're out in the seas and they find someone, and then they're just like, give us your kid. I'm just like, oh, this is a lazy, contrived way. Like, it would have been better if the raft just fell apart or something like that. But for these random people to come out of nowhere and for some reason wanting the kid, I don't know, that feels awfully contrived. Like, I'm sure that's going to be the main conflict in season 2. My guess is that the plane in the jungle where all the drugs are, they're looking for that plane. That would be my guess. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't like how that storyline ended at all this season. Then we got this storyline involving the radio and the French lady, and I didn't care for this stuff at all. It focuses on it too much, and it just feels like it's all made up on the spot. Like, oh, we need to triangulate the position, and okay, you go over there, and they just find a way to just drag it out. Oh, we need a battery for the radio. Oh, we need to do this. We need to get into a higher position, and just, it always goes wrong. I didn't care for any of this stuff whatsoever. I thought it was really poorly written stuff. I wish they actually focused more on the survival aspect of being on an island. Like, there's one episode where they're hunting bull, but that's the only time they really give attention to the food they're eating. There's one episode early on where we see them collecting rainwater and putting that into bottles. But I wish we saw more of that, or stuff going wrong with that. Like, for a show where these people are stuck on an island, I just wish they focused on the survival aspect of it more. Like, I feel like that should be the main conflict, the main tension at the core of the show, but it feels more like an afterthought than anything else. Then we've also got this storyline where there's these people on the island, like this Lance guy, and yeah, I didn't really care for that. Yeah, that's really it. Like, this show doesn't have much story. There's not much going on in this show. It just focuses on these different characters on the island. And I gotta say, that kind of show doesn't really appeal to me the most. You know, there are some better episodes than others. Like there's one episode where Jack is stuck in a cave and I'm just like, okay, this is the kind of conflict that should be in an episode where they're stuck on an island. And I like that episode. You know, there's some sweet moments between Jack and Kate in that episode. Charlie is actually overcoming some stuff in that episode. I liked it. That was a good episode. There's one episode where Sawyer has this briefcase and they're trying to get it back from him. I like this episode. So there are some episodes that I did legitimately like. This season is 25 episodes long. Not because the creators had a story in mind that would take 25 episodes to tell. It's 25 episodes long because the studio mandated it. And I get that's how television shows worked back then. But it doesn't mean I have to like it. This show is lacking in any sense of story. There are these people that crash onto an island and they hardly focus on that aspect, on them trying to survive. Instead, the entire plot of this show just feels like an afterthought. The actual plane crash and being stuck on an island feels like an afterthought. Like this show could have been based around any situation where all these characters would be stuck together. And I just don't think they do enough with the premise. There's some good characters that I like, but about half of them add nothing to the show, and that's a lot of characters to add nothing to it. A lot of time wasted. The flashbacks did nothing for me. There's not enough story going on. And even all the stuff that is going on in the show, it feels very network television. And I know that's exactly what it is, but it doesn't feel like there's any depth or nuance to it. It feels like very surface level entertainment. Will I ever watch this season of television again? No. I'll keep watching the show because I know it's such an iconic series. And I do want to see how it ends. But, yeah, I gotta be honest. This fourth season didn't do much for me. So, I'm gonna go ahead and give Lost Season 1 a 4.5 out of 10. Okay, what did you think of the first season of Lost? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin,